The rent is paid in full for Daniel Gafford as Daniel Gafford gets a contract extension from the Dallas Mavericks. 3 years, $54 million, as our guy Marc Stein reports, for your Dallas Mavericks. It's the DLLS Mavs Emergency Podcast. I'm your man, Kevin Gray, alongside Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato. Appreciate you joining us here on DLLS Sports as the news coming in about an hour ago that Daniel Gafford has received a contract extension from the Dallas Mavericks. Again, 3 years, $54 million, Tim Cato. The first day where players can begin negotiating with their teams as far as their own deals are concerned, as far as free agents, but also for guys currently on deals with their teams. And Daniel Gafford gets an extension done with the Dallas Mavericks here.
Great to see you, Kevin. We missed you on the show today. Yeah, I think
Gafford wanted me to work apparently, so I'm here.
Absolutely.
I'm here.
You know, there's always something.
Yeah.
I think the first and most obvious, most notable thing to say about this deal is that Daniel Gafford could still be traded. And there's a real argument that a player under contract rather than a player going into an expiring deal, because Daniel Gafford is not he's a player of value. He is a player that teams would want to go and acquire. He is a younger player. There's a lot of reasons to think that whether Gafford is or isn't going to be traded, that this does not change that fact. If you asked me what my gut feeling is about this, I really would wonder and tend to suspect that this might be something working towards a trade that's going to happen. But it's what my gut says right now. Obviously, you just look at the reality of the Dallas Mavericks and the roster that they're going to be taking into next year. If Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively and Anthony Davis and PJ Washington and Cooper Flagg are all healthy, if you split 24 minutes at the center position, 32 minutes to, to Cooper, Anthony Davis, and PJ Washington, in 32 minutes, especially for Anthony Davis and PJ Washington, who averaged more minutes than that last season, that's kind of a low guess or a low estimate. I'm being generous. That's all of the minutes that you have in your rotation for positions 3, 4, and 5. There's obviously some level of a logjam. Dallas clearly has interest in playing Anthony Davis next to a center. There's no doubt about this. It's also possible that Daniel Gafford being the one extended and PJ Washington not currently, as things stand, reaching an extension. He will be going into next season as an expiring. It could mean that PJ Washington is on the move. But once again, just by the logistics of Dallas, how many minutes they have available to them with Cooper Flagg's addition, there is a lot of reason to believe that at some point, one of PJ Washington or Daniel Gafford are going to be traded. And this deal does not eliminate that. Let's see, $18 million per year for a backup center. Here's the thing. Daniel Gafford sees himself as a starting center, and I think that's a perfectly reasonable, justified thing for him to think that there are probably at least half the teams in the league I could easily see him starting on. The question is, would he ever start in Dallas? And more specifically, would he ever close games? $18 million per year is not a salary price you pay to someone who is just a backup center to you. So if there's more moves coming, if PJ Washington is moving out, if Dallas is fully committed to always trying to put a center next to Anthony Davis, then maybe it is just a sign that he is coming back to Dallas, that this is them saying he's going to get locked up and he's part of our core. He's part of our team. That's always possible. But when you look at the scenario, when you look at the circumstances, when you look at the idea that if Derek Lively's on the team, there's still going to be a lot of minutes where Anthony Davis is playing the 4 with a center next to him. When you consider all of those things, I would say that we're still kind of just at net neutral, or like we're still kind of at a standstill or an uncertainty about, does this mean Daniel Gafford is staying or going? How is Dallas going to shape the roster going, this summer, going into next season? I would say that this extension, weirdly enough, offers pretty much no insight into what exact direction they're planning to take.
Yeah, I mean, number one for me, the big takeaway is that Daniel Gafford deserved this kind of contract. He has earned this with the play that he's displayed with the Dallas Mavericks, and I'm happy for him that he has got this kind of contract. Now, the flexibility that this could offer them in terms of a next move, the draft is in a couple of days. We could see if there's a move that's happening for Daniel Gafford because this trade, this number, I should say, the $54 million is about the maximum allowable figure that you can have to still be moved immediately versus not being able to be traded. So there's some interesting things to think about from not just a lineup standpoint, but for, as you mentioned, this is the kind of money you would think for a lot of players around the league at his position at this stage in his career that he would be a starter. I still think Derek Lively is the one that needs to start ahead of Daniel Gafford, but at the same time, there is some flexibility there. But as you mentioned, what kind of insight does this really give us into what could be possibly happening? Could they stick with Gafford? Could they move him? What does this mean for PJ Washington? He's eligible for a 4-year, nearly $90 million extension beginning in late August. So they still need guard help. So there's some things that you could potentially look into to say, well, this is what they could do if Gafford is moved or if he's not. But also, we still got a couple of days before the NBA draft that we could still see some moving and shaking. And even by the time we get to free agency that begins officially next week as well. So a lot to still be sorted out based off of not just this piece of business, but what the domino effect could be for this going forward as well here.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, as I said before, $18 million. It's a price that I believe Daniel Gafford has earned. It is a perfectly reasonable price. It is not a price point that, in my head, how NBA teams, NBA front offices tend to build their rosters. It's not a price point that you would pay to a backup center. It is a starting level price point. Now, you can make the argument, might be people in the chat doing it right now. You can make the argument, I think we just saw a comment, that Derek Lively is often injured. But there is still the reality that if Derek Lively is the number one, and you're going into next season with him healthy, planned as the number one option, yes, you have contingencies. You must understand that he is a player whose availability might be more in question than somebody else, but they have a backup center. His name's Anthony Davis. He's the guy who can slide in there. It's less about Daniel Gafford. If Anthony Davis wasn't on the team, and you're rolling, and if this was still the Luka Mavericks, where having that rim running center, having 48 minutes of them was of utmost importance, I do think it would be a very different story. But it's not just that 18 is getting paid out to a backup center if the roster remains as it is. It's that you're also paying 50-something million to another guy who is going to play center for you. Even last season, when the centers were healthy, for example, the game against the Lakers in April, Luka's return to Dallas. That was a game where, for long stretches in the second half of that game, Dallas went to Anthony Davis at center. This is going to be a lineup they use. And while you have the luxury to pay more to a backup center, if your starter is on the rookie scale, which Derek Lively is, you do have that luxury. I just think that it gets quite a bit more complicated to assign that dollar figure to that position. Not saying anything about Daniel Gafford and his deservedness of this contract, which I think is very deserved. Just speaking purely to the idea that the dollar slot that you would give to that player in that position in your depth chart does not necessarily mesh well, because Anthony Davis is going to be playing center, is going to be taking minutes from that position at times, even if your plan is to try to play Anthony Davis a lot of the time at the 4. So eventually it just comes down to this reality that it does seem pretty likely that this could lead to a trade. Again, I do think it's possible that I still think it's possible that PJ Washington could be the guy moved rather than Daniel Gafford. But because of the number coming in right at the line, as you said, Kevin, that allows him to be immediately still tradable, 120% of his previous salary, to me, that indicates there may be something coming.
Yeah, and this is also against the backdrop of Kyrie Irving having to make his decision tomorrow when it comes to his $44 million player option as well. So significant business already starting to take place with this team. not only with Daniel Gafford getting the extension done, but also Kyrie Irving with the decision that he has to make tomorrow and what that could mean as far as more financial flexibility if he opts out and decides to take a deal that will allow the Mavericks to have a little more flexibility under the cap as well. So I think this today is a good sign for the Mavericks in terms of how they feel about Gafford, whether they do keep him or move him in terms of what he has earned. But also, if a team does acquire Daniel Gafford, they're going to get a really good player at a nice price in terms of under $20 million a year for a starting caliber center in the league, and what that does to make him much more attractive to a team that would want to potentially acquire a starting center of Daniel Gafford's caliber, because we've talked about it before on the show. In order to get something, you got to give up something good, and this makes Daniel Gafford look that much better potentially if you're going to possibly move him. I don't think that necessarily they want to move him, but this does make him a little bit more attractive, that much more attractive, I should say, if that is indeed the case, if they need to try to find some guard help moving forward here.
Yeah, and quite frankly, feeling like you're in a situation where you have to move a good player that you really like having on your team, that's a position of strength. That's a good situation for NBA teams to be in. If you have a player who is a good player, but he just isn't going to get as many minutes as makes sense for the team you've built because there's so many other better players who are crowding him out, that's not a bad thing. That is just the reality of a roster filled with talent and the reality of Dallas, particularly having a lot of front court talent right now. Daniel Gafford, it's been amazing, and I don't want to speak to him like he's out the door or gone yet. But
sure,
over the past year and a half, it has been so fun to watch him just bully ball, be the more physical guy, treat bad teams, bad centers, guys who just can't match his physicality, to treat them like he's a ninth grader beating up on sixth graders, a senior, beating up on, guys on the JV team. It's so fun. It's one of the things I enjoy most in basketball because it's just like there's something beautiful. It's just like I'm bigger and taller and stronger and can jump higher, can move faster than you. There's a lot of joy in that. He's also been a really, really notably improved and fearsome shot blocker with some absolute, awesome, mesmerizing highlight plays. The reality is Dallas has a better center than him. Derek Lively has been pretty much every minute they've shared they've been on the team together. For every minute they've both been available, Derek Lively has been the better center of the two. And that's especially true against better opponents as you start to make deeper playoff runs. This is proven true. It's proven true in the finals run last year. It's proven true even down the stretch of last season. So given that, I do think that, Gafford is, if he is moved, he is going to make another team really happy. But the reality of Dallas is that they have to understand these facts. And it is quite possible that, this is where this is headed.
That is the breaking news. Daniel Gafford gets a 3-year, $54 million deal from the Dallas Mavericks. We will see what happens moving forward over the next several days with the NBA draft coming up on Wednesday. Kyrie Irving has his decision to make tomorrow as far as his player option is concerned, but a good piece of business done by the Dallas Mavericks. Daniel Gafford, 3 years, $54 million, his extension with Dallas. We appreciate you joining us here on the DLLS Mavs Emergency Podcast. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, at 12 p.m. with more on this with our national NBA insider, Marc Stein, as well. Appreciate our guy, Tim Cato, our Mavericks beat writer, hopping on with us here on the show as well. And thanks, I got Bobby producing behind the scenes for us this evening. Appreciate him. My name is Kevin Gray. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the DLLS Mavs Podcast. Y'all be good.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.